Okay, I had the pleasure, and both Danny and I had the pleasure of being on your podcast last year, which was so cool. And now we get a chance to have you on Muscles by Brussels. But our audience doesn't know anything about you. All that I know is that you are a really amazing person. And when I realized your topic and what you had to speak about, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we actually have to have you on the podcast. Like this is going to be so cool. But first, I'm super curious to one. I want to learn a little more about you because usually when you're being interviewed, you don't really get a chance to know the person who's interviewing you. But I want to learn more about you, and I'd love for our audience to know more about you, Kate. So tell us a little about yourself.
𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. And it was so much fun interviewing both you and Danny for my podcast. So, my name's Kate Galli. I'm a vegan health coach and author and podcaster based in Sydney, Australia. So, half a world away. And I guess I've been vegan for 7.5 years and vegetarian for 23 years prior to that. So, I guess, like many of your audience, many of our listeners, I'm very sure I became vegetarian for ethical reasons. I didn't want anyone dying for my food choices. And I was ignorant to the fact that individuals were still dying. So, fast track 23 years, I watched the documentary Cowspiracy. I found out that we'd been lied to. I basically became vegan on the spot. I remember giving away like a couple of trays of free range organic eggs to my clients because, I obviously couldn't have them anymore. And yeah, that I guess in super fast track is my story from, 16-year-old little meat loving meat eater to vegetarian to now vegan and absolutely loving the lifestyle.
Right on. Was there a particular moment that you remember when you went from meat lover to vegetarian?
Yeah, there was a girl at school. So again, I was 16. I was having a conversation with a girl at school who, was really healthy and assertive and was telling me all about the way, basically opening my eyes to the individuals behind our food choices. And that kind of planted the seeds. And then there was a particular moment after that where I was at a family friend's house and they made us this horrific meal that was actually smoked trout and fish roast soup. And I always hated the taste of fish, even as a child, even though I loved the taste of meat. And this was the most rich, most horrific soup. And when you're a child, you have to eat everything because it's polite and you need to do that. And I consumed the soup and we got back in the car and it was a long and windy drive. And obviously, I vomited that horrific soup back up again. And I kind of declared at that point in time, I'm in control of what I eat. I'm in control of whatever I put into my mouth, and I'm not doing it just to be polite. So it was that and the ethical consideration after that conversation with the girl at school, and I certainly never went back from there.
Right on. And then what about Cowspiracy? What was it about that that resonated with you to make the switch to vegan?
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Like Dominion, obviously, it would have been like the ethics and the absolute horrors. I think it was the lies. I think Cowspiracy prompted me to do my own due diligence to kind of dig a bit deeper and hunt out the videos. So far as dairy and eggs and everything else, it prompted me to just really dig into everything that I'd been ignorant about. And I must say, I've given myself grief, as so many people do. I've wondered, did I walk past those individuals on the streets holding up the videos of slaughterhouse footage? I've been that individual before. Did I walk past them? Did I see any of that? Did I turn a blind eye to all of that? I don't think I did. I can't remember any of it. So it really was Cowspiracy that just led me to look deeper.
Right on. And what about your experience with wanting to and then becoming a coach?
So I was a debilitatingly shy teenager, and I actually got into the gym as a way to transform both my body and also my confidence. And as I'm sure you and Danny can relate, like it's amazing the confidence it can give you, setting your mind on the way you want your body to look and function, and then actually being able to achieve it. Particularly if you're non genetically gifted, such as me, if you're a little bit uncoordinated, such as me, joining the gym can just really be such an empowering and confidence gaining decision to do. And so I'd been obsessed with the gym for probably about a decade before I actually took the plunge and became a trainer. And again, that was amazing. One of the brilliant things about being a trainer is you kind of have to choose your mood for your clients. Like it, to my mind anyway, you not only need to look the part, you need to act the part, you need to be the most positive, focused person in the room. That's what I think anyway. And by choosing your mood every single time that you walk into the gym, it's not only amazing for your clients, it's actually really amazing for you. I found that from being that grumpy, shy, self obsessed little teenager, a decade plus on, I became someone that was so much better to be around and so much better to be.
Right on. Cool. That's a really interesting perspective that you share on what it feels like to be a coach and perhaps how that changed you as a person for yourself between the shyness and the coordination and the fitness and the health and all of it, how it comes together for you, and more importantly, how it comes together for you to help others. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you help others and work with them on a deeper level? You mentioned earlier before our conversation today that you have this idea of overwhelm and how that affects others in their beliefs on what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, definitely. We can get into overwhelm. That would be fabulous. I would say my passion and my skill set is helping people create the mindset. I guess the mind games to play with yourself that make your best eating and exercising actions simple and sustainable. So we all know, it's not the best eating strategy or the flashiest trainer or the best gym or best gym gear that gets you the results. It's all about creating the most effective mindset to make it sustainable. And I would say joyful and fun as well. And so, overwhelm is one tiny little component of that. To make it fun and memorable, I'm a massive fan of the acronym. So, I have a 9 step overwhelm overcoming acronym. And to start off, I would say I used to do overwhelm really well. It's not so much fun. And overwhelm really is, it's lazy thinking, to be blunt. It's scattered thinking. It's focusing on everything that you have to do with a really special emphasis on all those things beyond your control. So, number one, the O in overwhelm is most important, and that is to only focus on what you can control. And in itself, that is amazing because then you are just not spending your energy on all that stuff, the weather, the world's financial climate, the way people react and respond to you, everything beyond your control. We're just putting it out of your mind. So I guess I can power on through the steps, and please interrupt me, Giacomo, wherever you want to kind of butt in. So O is for only focus on what you can control. V is for value your daily progresses and small wins. I actually like to jot down 3 wins every single day because it can be really easy to just focus on what you haven't achieved. And we really do need to value every single little win. Um, Even the really tiny ones. So, E is to eliminate unnecessary inputs. And often, in relation to, I guess, diet culture and the most effective eating strategies, we're talking about all those inputs that you don't need to be putting into your body. Just as importantly, just as effectively, all the, I guess, psychological inputs that we don't need to be putting into our brain. So, because they're ineffective and they throw us off track. So that's E. R is the respect that structure is freedom. So I am a huge fan of structure, of planning your day to come, of following that structure with little time increments, ticking lists, all of that. And structure might sound a bit daunting and freeing, a bit daunting and overwhelming. However, the way I see it is if you have everything that you need to do in a day structured and planned, it means all the other hours in your day are free. And for you, if you don't plan if you don't plan anything, then it feels like every single hour of your day should be used in these tasks that are hanging over you. However, if you structure a good part of your day, again, that's freedom. So this brings us to W and our Overwhelm Overcoming
Okay.
acronym. And W is a willingness to constantly upgrade the freedom creating structure. So if you're a little consistency queen or king like me, you can sometimes hold too tight to your structure and your routine. And so W, that willingness, is all about recognizing when something isn't working any longer and upgrading it for the better. So you're not doing a habit just because you've done it for 2 decades. You're doing it because it works really well and it still does work. H is to have the sensory acuity, so just the awareness to know when your focus is scattered. So again, we can get really busy just doing the do, and maybe it's not the most effective do. And so this step is just bringing yourself back to the present and I guess asking yourself, is this the most effective use of my time right now? And then having the discipline to change that focus. Powering on through, E, super important. I've got escape to nature at least weekly. But for you, for our listeners, it might be something else. It might be escaping to whatever it may be, escaping to spending time with loved ones, whatever it is. But for me, it's nature. I find when I get ratty and low tolerance and overwhelmed at things that shouldn't be overwhelming, it's when I haven't had time outside in nature. 8, super important as well. This is to lock and load the big rocks that keep you healthy and happy. So big rocks are those things that have been proven to be super effective in your life. So exercise, meal prep, adequate sleep, adequate water. You likely know what they are for you. And I super recommend that you actually lock and load them into your schedule so that they're a non-negotiable appointment with you. M is perhaps predictable. It's a habit that took me so many years to stick to, but it's a game changer, and that is to meditate. So those are my 9 overwhelm overcoming tactics.
Yeah, and you make it sound so practical, so simple, so sensible. And then I think about when you coach people and you almost feel like you have the same person over and over again has the overwhelm because they want so much out of life and they're asking for so much out of life, and life is ever changing. And there are
Mm.
good problems coming their way and bad problems coming their way. Plus, they have the sense of continuing to try to do more and more. And how will they do it all? And I like how you ended the idea of overwhelm with practical stuff like taking care of the bottom of the pyramid, your sleep, and or like your hydration, for example, and then also meditating and getting out in nature, things to keep you tethered and grounded when you're, I think you said, feeling ratty, so to speak, and then you start the beginning of it thinking of the important things, like you don't have to feel overwhelmed, and there are things that you can do that are, as we like to say over here, systematic, as in the way that you're saying in your words, very similarly, right? The routine, the consistency, and all that, and how that all can come together over time. But in theory, sounds nice. In actuality, in practice, how do you tackle this with people one on one who are not systems? They're people who are trying to put these things into action and are failing or feeling like, well, that's all well and good, Kate. However, how can you make this a part of my life? What are like a what's like a good way to start?
100%. So many. I will always bring people's attention back to the O, the only focus on what you can control. Because if someone's feeling scattered, generally it is that they are wasting their energy with the things that they actually can't change. And we've got limited energy, limited time, limited discipline in a day. So I will often do that. I'm also a huge fan of the brain dump. I do that regularly myself and I recommend it to a client. And it basically just involves getting a huge piece of like A3, whatever it is, paper, and dumping, taking 10 minutes, however long you need, to dump everything that is racing around in your brain down onto that paper. And that in itself sounds like it might be contradictory, that it might be overwhelming. But actually, when everything's written down and you're looking at it there on paper, it's a lot less than when it's an unlimited amount of mess in your brain. So for a start, dumping it on the paper is amazing. And then I would get people to categorize everything into three categories. One is ditch. So these are the things that you actually don't need to do. They're not important or they're not within your control. They're in your brain, but they're not within your control. So ditch them. Up next, delegate. Maybe they have team members, maybe they don't, maybe they have family members. Delegate whatever you can in that overwhelming pile. And then the next one is do. So these are the things that they really do need to do. And most importantly, I would coach my client to decide on the one most impactful next do item and to action that ideally today. Because if we're feeling overwhelmed, it's amazing how making progress in just one action, one small step in the right direction, that can really make us feel like we're taking control again.
Yeah, it's very true because even when you get what you want on paper, if you're not feeling good while you're doing it, the reward, even if it's a long-term reward, it's not going to be enough to keep you feeling healthy and keep you going. And why should you suffer for your goal? And I
Mm.
feel like that is definitely a challenge when someone does anything long enough. Sure, they can accomplish their goal if they're a do or die kind of person, but at what expense, at what cost? And that's where I like how you mentioned to do the brain dump and to take care of yourself and to realize that you're enough and that you can actually work on whatever it is, the scatter, as you call it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And you find like that you have to continue to check and do these rechecks just to make sure along the way where instead of just trusting your process because you're able to keep going, you have a way to check in and be like, okay, well, what are going to be the hurdles and the roadblocks right now and the challenge that you can't even see coming at you? So your approach just sounds so nice and so refreshing as opposed to the way the fitness industry, in my opinion, I'm not sure how it is, but even just globally, like digitally, to me personally, the fitness world, the fitness industry seems like everyone should just push, push, push and just do better and work harder. And there's a there's a there's a need for that, but there's also a limit into how effective that can be. Because why should people have to hurt while they're getting to where they want to be, getting to be a physically fitter and healthier person?
100%. I think that you're absolutely right so far as the fitness community. It is absolutely also the case so far as the vegan and animal rights activist community. When something seems so urgent as an animal rights activist or so important as your health, the tendency can just be to push until the death, to like, or more so just to your detriment. Self-care, as cheesy as it may sound, is something I am really super focused on as well right now. I think it is so important for us to build into our every single day those rituals, those habits, those non-negotiables that help us achieve sustainably and also enjoy the journey, right? It can be so easy to be focused on that goal in the future and the pressure we put on ourselves to achieve it. However, in every single day, we should be striving to enjoy every single day as well, because whatever we're working towards, whether it's a healthy vegan world or whether it's that ideal body that we can confidently rock around in, sadly, it's going to take us longer than we expect. So we have to look after ourselves on the journey to get there.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the animal rights stuff and the giving with the activism and how that needs to be the right here, right now, must do kind of stuff, and how that pressure can affect people and challenge, especially when you're dealing with those who aren't activists. And right, it can just be such a challenging thing to work through conversationally when it's so important to you, and you just kind of see the crippling, the big everything, the world around you just not being that way. You're like, come on, I really want to make a difference. And you put that pressure on yourself to control what you
I
can control.
I would say the most challenging component of adopting a vegan lifestyle. You know, it's not the food or the body or anything like that. That is the food part, most people find is so much easier and more delicious and more diverse and cheaper than you would ever anticipate. It's amazing. The hard bit that sadly most of us are unprepared for is dealing in relationships with non-vegan loved ones and colleagues and randoms on the street. You know, that is the really exhausting and frustrating and disappointing part. And again, that's why looking after ourselves with self care is so vital.
So, what are some of your favorite vegan meals that are healthy and nutritious and delicious?
I love huge bowls of abundance. Like, I love huge meals. I love lots of variety so far as crispy, creamy, cooked, not cooked. So, a mammoth pile of like baked veggies with some sort of really wholesome, like bean and mushroom burger, and some sort of leafy salad with a either tahini based dressing or a green goddess type dressing. I'd love some big bowl or plate of that. That's definitely a favorite, but far out, there are so many favorites.
Okay. All right. And what's your favorite workout?
Ooh, I've been a lower body girl for so long. I love the, I love my lunges and my deadlifts, and oh, that said, I love my chins as well. You know, lower body or back are probably my favorite to train. However, my approach to exercise is it's precious me time, and I'm grateful that I can do it. And any of us that have the health and the time and the financial freedom to be able to exercise, I'm just so incredibly grateful that I can.
What are some of the most overwhelming experiences, whether they're personal, like your experience, or whether they're clients' experiences that you have seen and faced, and what have you done to help others or help yourself overcome?
That's a good question. From a business point of view, probably the most overwhelming point in time was when I had the business from hell, as I like to call it. And that was over a decade ago now. And I had bought into a franchise, a gym franchise, and it was a money hemorrhaging machine. And there were so many horror stories as a part of that franchise. I had it for 2.5 years. I'd been a trainer for a few years prior to that. And I remember when I eventually decided that I needed to get out of that business because there was no fun component of it. My team were amazing and my clients were amazing, but everything else was horrific. And I was looking to sell the business, and I had a business broker, and he was a grizzly old Aussie gentleman who'd seen a lot and tough as anything. And I remember him saying to me, Kate, when you eventually escape this business, you need to write a book because this business is a soap opera. Like, just so many things went wrong with that business. Nothing went well. And that was the time I kind of really knuckled down on everything self development and just devouring all the audio books, and podcasts weren't even really around then, but just devouring everything I could to kind of focus on what I could control. And even more so, even more than the overwhelm, it was more about, I guess, learning to back myself. That was one of my most important lessons in that business and in life. And I would say this is hopefully useful to everyone listening. The fact that times are uncertain, right? Like, maybe for the past few years, it's felt really, really uncertain. The fact is, life has always been uncertain. It's just been kind of forced in our face in recent years. And I kind of learned that much more effective than trying to control circumstances and trying to have certainty in circumstances. The more fun and effective thing to do is to have certainty in you. So to back yourself to come up with the goods no matter what the circumstances. That's what I had to do when I was hemorrhaging money, when I was taking money, cash off my personal credit card and putting it into the business bank account so that I could pay my team on time. You know, when my business partner took off overseas and wasn't there to sign the contract when we finally sold the business. And the lawyer said his signature needs to be there one way or another. I'm sure enough years have gone by now. You know, I just kind of learned that really you're the only one that can come through for you. And that has been, I don't know if I could have my time again. I probably wouldn't get into that business again. However, I almost probably would because that lesson was just so important. And I think of it in tough times moving forward. So many times I'm like, you got through that, you can get through anything.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of relating that I'm sure for others who have had their own businesses and kept going, whether it was the same business or something new business wise. And I'm sure there's a lot of parallels there that others can relate to that have nothing to do with business or career or in general. And you find that with clients all the time, where they come to you and they're looking for something and the outcome is just not what they envisioned and they just keep going. And even if they're not sinking deeper into the same thing, it's like, what do you do after the fact? How do you keep going? How do you, it almost seems like they have to start all over again just to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish all the time when, and I hate to say it because it's tough love and it's really calling someone out and asking them to take full responsibility and to not make excuses for themselves. That the only thing standing between you and you accomplishing what you want to do, and it hurts to say it, it's you. It's
Of
nobody
course.
else.
Yeah.
Of course.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, well, full responsibility is also full control. So I am absolutely down for having 100% responsibility because I'm a controls freak, and that also means I get 100% control. There is again a freedom in that, and I would also say back to the overwhelm component as coaches, something that I found hard to. Um, get better at and I'm endeavoring to do all the time is to not be overwhelming ourselves with all of our advice, especially when you have someone who's looking to adopt a plant-based lifestyle. And sometimes you're just so damn excited. You just want to download all this amazing information on them, and it can be too much. It can be overwhelming for the individual, and maybe they just won't even make a start. So I'm getting better at just getting them to let me know what is the next one most important thing we can do together, I can help you with, rather than gushing everything all over them.
Right. And the easiest sell, of course, is tell them, hey, you can do these 3 workouts a week. You can eat these 4 meals a day. You can do it for the next 3 or 4 weeks. You're going to feel good and you're going to get what you want. And then you step in, Kate, and you're like, okay, and now you're going to get what you really need, right? As a coach. And
Yeah, for sure.
that's, yeah, exactly. Do you have any examples of any clients that, or I don't know if that's too personal or any specific type of client where you feel like maybe something outside of business as an example was overwhelmed for them, maybe lifestyle, family, or maybe if you wanted to pivot to the difficulty and just existing in the world as a vegan, whatever you think. I'm just throwing some ideas at you.
Let's go to the difficulty in existing in the world as a vegan, because I've been writing and podcasting a bit recently, and it seems to be going down well. So far as why I stopped being an angry vegan, and you know, full transparency, I still have those angry moments in me. However, I'm trying really, really hard to lead with love and compassion and deliciousness because, to be honest, it's more effective. I've had the huge privilege and pleasure of interviewing hundreds of athletes and activists and authors and doctors and entrepreneurs. And the one thing I've noticed is that the activists that I have so much respect for what they do, I always will. But I also worry for them and their mental health and their sustainability and their quality of life and their anger and hurt and pain that they carry around, that I have carried around. I don't want to be that. And I don't think it's received as effectively. And, personally, I started to see my relationships with loved ones like disintegrate and be really drastically impacted because I was always flying the vegan flag and I was resentful that they didn't get it. And, I was focusing on what they weren't doing. Whereas one of my current strategies now is to take a loved one, a friend, a colleague, and to try really hard to focus on what we actually have in common, because there are so many things that we have in common, and they are compassionate. They're just not being as compassionate yet towards the animals and the environment as I would want them to be. However, there is a lot that we can connect on. And I guess I have a little AVC for that as well, and an AVC for how I stopped being an angry vegan. And the A, which I hope will resonate with your audience, is first an awareness of how your way of being in the world, how it feels and what it's costing you. And I just found my awareness was that I was always like just fighting and disappointed and sad. And that's a lot to carry all of the time. And with that awareness, I would say track forward 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. How are you going to feel and how is your life going to look if that's how you're feeling all the time? And it just wasn't doable for me. So moving on, I would say B is all about brainstorming some alternatives. So brainstorm what you can stop doing to feel better, to be a happier vegan. For me, I stopped watching some of the films. I actually stopped doing some of the activism. I know that's really hard. I now see the podcast as my form of activism, not holding up videos in the street right now. I stopped looking at some of the videos on Facebook and stopped following some of the sites that showed those sorts of videos because it wasn't effective for me. And then I started doing some of the things that are really replenishing. So I started following more farm sanctuaries and watching happy videos. And I started sharing my delicious meals on the social medias. And so think of your stop doings, think of your start doings, just brainstorm what you can do to make it better. And then C is all about a commitment. So you've got the awareness of how it is, what it's costing you. You've brainstormed what you can stop doing and what you can start doing. And then you actually need to commit to make it happen. And that might mean writing it down in your daily schedule, which I'm a huge fan of. It might mean tracking it. Whatever it is, it's a commitment to you and it's a commitment to others. And part of that, Giacomo, is why I kind of have started sharing why I stopped being an angry vegan. Because you can bet non-vegans are going to call me on my angriness if I'm, proclaiming that I'm not
Yeah.
angry anymore. They're very happy to call me on it. So, the commitment
Mhm.
to any change is absolutely key.
How do people find you?
How do people find me? My website is strongbodygreenplanet.com. That is the easiest way to find me. You can find the podcast, which is Healthification, via the website. You can find my beautiful new plant positive journal via the website. And that's like a daily planner / journal. I've spoken a little bit about everything that I do to plan my day to come. I also write down my reference points for success, gratitudes, everything like that. I do all of that in the journal, and I designed this particular journal as a stunning little vegan Trojan horse. So it's really beautiful. It's full of recipes and all the mindset hacks that I use to make my best eating and exercising actions simple and sustainable. And by way of Trojan horse, I just mean it's a beautiful thing that people might buy to help them plan their day. And yet also it happens to help you adopt a healthy vegan lifestyle one step at a time as well. So strongbodygreenplanet.com and strongbodygreenplanet across the socials as well.
Strong Body, Green Planet, journal, podcast, so much more. A wonderful human. I'm so glad that you had a chance to spend some time with us and help our audience get to know you a little better. And we'll certainly leave all this in the show notes so that everyone can find you in the future. Thank you so much for sharing, Kate.
𝐶𝐿, it was such a huge pleasure. Thank you so much for everything that you do as well. This has been so much fun. So thank you.
Thanks. See ya.